Hi everybody, this is Payanna and welcome to my book club. And today's video is about The Toll by Neal Shusterman, the third book in the arc of a Scythe Trilogy. And I was a bit surprised. A lot of, I don't know, not a lot, but a few reviews I've seen on BookTube of this book, the people were saying that they didn't like this as much as the other two. I actually preferred it. I think this is definitely the best one of the three. Neal Shusterman is truly a brilliant author. He has taken the art of foreshadowing to like an expert level. The amount of foreshadowing in this and how it goes on is so brilliant. And with this book, I did something that I had absolutely never done before. Normally when I'm reading a series or, you know, working my way through a series, I would always read and something completely different in between two books in a series. I didn't do that with this one because there is such a cliffhanger at the end of Thunderhead, like a monumental, epic cliffhanger. I was like, I gotta read. I want to find out what happens next. I'm not going to be able to get on with my life until I know what happens next. So I went straight to reading book 3. So at the end of book 2, the Thunderhead, the AI that governs over the world like everyone's nanny and works to better everyone's lives and make everyone's lives as easy as possible, decides that it will stop communicating with every single member of the human race aside from one man, Grayson. Now, Grayson, who we were introduced to in book 2, has now gone to live in a Tonus monastery. So the Tonus are this kind of weird religious people that nobody kind of really takes seriously, and he goes to live in this monastery where he is protected essentially because the Scythe world is against him, and so there Scythe Anastasia sends him to this monastery where he can be safe. Okay, so up until this point he was an unsavory, so people who were the sort of criminals of this world, like, you know, there's no big crimes that can happen anymore. But if the Thunderhead deems that they've done something wrong, then he will refuse to speak to them anymore. So Grayson, who had up until this point been very good friends with the Thunderhead, who he even considered Thunderhead to be his parent, wasn't able to communicate with him. But at the end of book 2, he can communicate with him once again, and he's the only person in the world who can. So essentially he becomes a sort of prophet, and he does become a prophet that ends up being called The Toll. And this book is pretty much all about Grayson's journey and where he goes from being The Toll. It is quite an extraordinary story. So he travels around the world, and people come to him and flock to him to ask the Thunderhead questions because he's the only person who can, you know, give them those answers. And it develops into a rather interesting relationship between him and the Thunderhead because, you know, the Thunderhead will obviously always be honest and always just tell the truth and say what the best thing is. But Grayson doesn't have to do that. Grayson can give his own interpretation, his own spin on things. And the Thunderhead doesn't really understand this, so it becomes a kind of interesting relationship. And then we've got Rowan and Citra. So Rowan and Citra, Scythe, Lucifer and Scythe Anastasia, who had a pretty bad turn at the end of book 2. Like, something pretty bad happened to them. They got locked in a bunker and sank to the bottom of the sea. Otherwise, they would die with no possibility of being revived. So they need to wait to be found. And we get introduced to a new character, Jericho, or Jerry, who is the captain of a ship, a salvage vessel, who is going to salvage the city of Endura that has been sunk by Scythe Goddard. and killing everyone who was there, including Rowan and Citra. And Rowan and Citra were locked inside the chamber in which all the Scythe's diamonds, the diamonds they have on their rings, so all the diamonds are in this safe. So obviously the Scythe world are very keen on getting them back because they're very important for their work. And Scythe Goddard, however, is like, no, he's become the supreme Scythe now. He rules over all of North America. He's trying to rule over the world. Like, he essentially becomes this evil dictator. And so a Scythe from South America, who have pretty much always been independent and outside of the North American Scythe jurisdiction, says, you know what, I don't care, I'm going to go and find this bunker. And they do, and they open it, and there's Rowan and Citra. So they have to be revived. And obviously they've got quite an interesting story to tell. Rowan wakes up very, very lucid, and Rowan at this point is seen as the person who sank Endura, given as he had such a bad reputation in book 2. He was the Scythe of Scythe, the killer of Scythes, and now Goddard put him in the position, accused him of being the one responsible for sinking Endura, even though obviously he didn't and Goddard did it, but you need a scapegoat. And Rowan was the ideal candidate, so he's considered a criminal. Citra, on the other hand, is Scythe Anastasia. She is still very popular and loved, and obviously they want to protect her, and they're rather confused as to why she was found in this bunker in Rowan's arms, but obviously she knows things that they don't. And alongside all of this, there's a part of book 2 which I didn't talk about in the video I made about it, which was about Scythe Faraday, who went to the library in Egypt and got working with this Egyptian student called Munira, and he was looking for this land called the Land of Nod, which is this kind of fairy tale land that exists in children's nursery rhymes, and he believes that there is a fail-safe there in case the Scythe world gets out of hand like it is going at this point. So he works with Munira, and at the end of book 2 they actually do find the Land of Nod, that it is a real place, and they get to go there. It's a bunch of archipelagos in the Pacific Ocean, and they get there, and so in book 3 they are kind of confused because they've got this great big chamber there that they can only open. It takes 2 Scythe rings to open it, and being as Faraday's there on his own, he's only got 1. Munira can't help him. She was a Scythe's apprentice, but she failed, so she doesn't have a ring, and they have no way of contacting the outside world because this archipelago is a blind spot to everyone. No one knows where it is, not even the Thunderhead, and this is what triggers the Thunderhead to go silent at the end of book 2, is it finds out that the human race essentially lied to him and kept information from him. And so he's kind of angry right now, but he does start working with the archipelagos. He sends the Nimbus agents over there because he doesn't know what this place is either, but he's going to do what he can to try and find out. So he sends his agents, who obviously have no purpose anymore given that they can't talk to him or interact with him. So he sends a bunch of them there to work some stuff out. He sends a bunch of construction equipment and a load of builders, and they start working. And I was blown away. Honestly, I was blown away by this novel. It went in a direction that I totally did not expect and was way better than anything I imagined. It was so brilliant. And like I say, the foreshadowing, just the whole idea behind it, the way this entire world was constructed, this entire trilogy was constructed. You've got the first book, Scythe, which is all about the Scythes and how they work. Then the second book is the Thunderhead and how that works. And this book's about Grayson, the Toll, and the religious order mainly, and how they came to be and what they stand for. And honestly, I didn't imagine when I started reading this trilogy that this religious order would actually have some kind of significance, but it does, because so much happens. There are all, obviously, like any religion, there are all these different factions, and they're fighting amongst themselves. They're fighting against non-religious people. It gets quite big in this novel. It's quite extraordinary, and just the ending, like when Faraday eventually figures out what the failsafe is, and all of that storyline pans out. It is so brilliant, and so I don't even want to spoil the ending, because honestly, everyone, I know that this has been talked about on BookTube a million times, and a lot of the novels I speak about have, but this one, so brilliant. I'm so impressed, and I definitely want to go and read more of Neal Shusterman's work, because wow, this is friggin' awesome. This guy, best writer ever. Certainly the best thing I've read this year outside of the Temeraire series, and I'm so happy I have this series now. Really brilliant. I also was really pleased with how the Thunderhead evolves, because it does really evolve in this novel. It kind of reminded me of Aidan from the Illuminae trilogy, but Aidan is always this very cold, calculating machine. Like Aidan was my favourite character in Illuminae, but there was one passage, and I did go looking for it in Illuminae. I did go looking for it, but I couldn't find it. There's this one moment where Aidan says that he wishes he had arms and he could hug someone. And there is a moment in this book where that was almost exactly like that. And but I like the Thunderhead more than Aidan, because even though Aidan does kind of grow, and it does grow a lot over the course of the Illuminae trilogy, in this book, the Thunderhead goes through such a massive amount of work and transformation in order to go through with this plan it's hatched on the archipelagos, on the land of Nod. And the thing is, it does not ever tell anyone about what's going on. It doesn't share this information at all. It's quite extraordinary how that pans out. And so this moment here, where it says, over the years, the Thunderhead had witnessed millions of people in each other's arms, embracing as they slept. The Thunderhead had no arms to embrace, even though it could feel the beat of Grayson's heart and the precise temperature of his body as if it were right beside him. To lose that would be a cause of immeasurable sorrow. And so, night after night, the Thunderhead silently monitored Grayson in every way it could, because monitoring was the closest thing it could come to embrace. And the big thing that's kind of notable about the Thunderhead is it does genuinely care. Whether it actually grew to care on its own, or whether it's just following its programming because it has to, is not entirely clear. It's kind of, to me at least, it was kind of blurry. But yeah, the just the journey the Thunderhead goes on in this book is quite extraordinary. We also got quite an interesting insight in how Goddard's mind works, so this evil mastermind, and I thought it was interesting. There was this passage here that I noted where it says, Goddard was convinced that the Tonists had spy drones. He was convinced that other forces were banding against him as well. He was convinced that unfriendly regions were aiding those forces. Whether or not any of these things were true didn't matter. He acted as if they were, which meant that that was Goddard's truth. And that was what was true for Goddard became true for the world. Or at least every part of the world where he had smudged his indelible fingerprints. So Goddard appears in this novel to be less in control than we thought he was. In book 1 and in book 2, when we briefly saw him in book 2, he comes across as a character who is in control of everything and who kind of understands and has this mastermind mentality. But in this novel, it really falls apart. It really falls apart. We get to see him for who he is, this incredibly paranoid character who's power hungry, but once he has that power, he is terrified of losing it. And obviously, the more powerful he becomes, the more of a threat he represents. And so there are more and more forces opposing him, and it kind of becomes a race, between suppressing those forces, like Stalinist Russia was, and in order to keep power, and then until it was eventually going to fall apart.
So, all in all, I am really, really pleased with this complete trilogy. I'm very, very happy to now have this story lodged in my brain. And honestly, if you haven't already read it, you probably have, but given how much noise this has made. But yes, truly, truly brilliant novel. Really recommend it, and really, really thank you for watching my video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me. I love making these videos, and I really want to continue doing this. So yes, share, comment, subscribe, tell me what you thought, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.